Howdy. Thanks for joining me today. This is my favorite spot out in the woods. I've been waiting for the snow to melt so I could come here and have a good talk. So the video today is called The Hex System, Magic, and Spell Casting. We'll get right into it. There is more than one way to trick a spiritual being into slavery. The beast system and hex system work hand in hand to keep you spiritually blinded and bound to the realm. Both systems aim at grabbing your full attention and putting you into a hypnotic trance state, using trauma-based mind control and trickery. Or simply put, magic. The sorcerers of this age trap your consciousness into finite patterns of thought, feelings, and actions, limiting your perception of reality. David Icke calls it the postage stamp reality. You could also say in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed king rules. You'll notice a lot of people using that one-eye symbol. I think they rule. So let's define magic. Magic with a K. The art of influencing or predicting events and producing marvels using hidden forces of nature. Also, supernatural art, especially the art of controlling the actions of spiritual or superhuman beings. Magic used as a verb to transform, produce, affect, as if by magic. It's like having an effect on something and nobody knows how or why it happened. It was magic. So you could also say the art of influencing using hidden natural forces. Some call it a cult, which occult just means hidden, which means, you're just not paying attention to something you could see that's out there. You could also say it's the power of suggestion. A lot of magic is just suggestion. So I got this definition from lightwarriorslegion.com. I'll put a link in the description. But I thought it was really good. Magic encompasses many things: science, art, philosophy, metaphysics, and psychology. Basically anything unknown. Magic is an adventure at the borderlands of the unknown. It can fit the pieces of the puzzle of life together into a meaningful whole. Fundamental to magic is a belief that the phenomenal world of the five senses is incomplete. So it's really any form of spirituality is magic. You're reaching beyond your five senses. You sense there's something else going on here, that it can't be seen. And so this is from that website. As I understand it, I could say that magic is the ability to recognize and understand the underlying forces of nature and the laws which govern them. On the other hand, people who do not understand these laws or refuse to recognize them see magic as a supernatural act performed against God and therefore unnatural. Magic uses mental training, concentration, and a system of symbols to program the mind. The purpose of magic is to alter the self and the environment according to the will. Magic is another polarity. It can be used to alter yourself and the environment for good, not just bad. I have a few examples of some magicians you've probably heard of. Some people call them mentalists. We've all heard of David Blaine, David Copperfield, Dynamo, Chris Angel Mind Freak. I'm sure you've heard of this guy and his crazy shows he's put on. And then the classic Harry Houdini and this guy Howard Thurston, which I'd never heard of Howard Thurston, but he's one of the most popular magicians of the past. And this is what Howard Thurston had to say about magic. In the classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, he discussed his experience meeting with the great musician Howard Thurston. Here's what he said. I asked Mr. Thurston to tell me the secret of his success. Thurston had a genuine interest in people. He told me that many magicians would look at their audience and say to themselves, well, there's a bunch of suckers out there. I'll fool them all right. But Thurston's method was totally different. He told me that every time he went on stage, he said to himself, I am grateful because these people come to see me. They make it possible for me to make my living in a very agreeable way. I'm going to give them the very best I possibly can. So, just like Thurston said, magic can be used to benefit all and bring fun into the realm. It's not just a tool of trickery or control. So now I want to talk about spell casting. The hex system is all about casting spells and carrying out rituals to get you to join with them consensually. Magic tricks need consenting audiences. So I'm going to list a few ways you are tricked into consent. Contracts. The good old mortgage, which I call a mortgage, because when you look a mortgage up in French, it literally means a death contract. Mort, like a mortician. You go into debt while no real value was created. An imaginary account was created and credited the loan amount you requested. As you pay the death contract off year by year, you create the value and pay extra according to the interest rates and other fees or whatever. The financiers didn't create anything but a magic trick. They get the full amount plus the interest on what you agreed on. It's just that they're in the club and you're not. So they get to create value out of thin air. You don't. You gotta work your whole life to create something. Another contractual trick we get caught up in is the fiat currencies. So you agree that a piece of paper has value. Value is not created by this magic trick of printing paper, but rather your human value and energy are exploited in the process. You work your entire life for paper notes, while a small group of bankers gets to harness all the energy of the realm and steer humanity in any direction they choose. Can you guess which direction they're taking you in with all this power? Another contractual hex that you get into is voting. This ritual tricks you into joining with the hex system voluntarily. you get to select between 2 slave masters every 4 years. When you cast your vote, you're agreeing to be a slave with no voice anymore. Somebody else represents me, right? Like that's ever true. And nobody will ever represent me. Let me tell you that one. Some more, another form of this spell casting are licenses. Licenses are a way to control and monopolize a natural process. Easy examples, like a driver's license. Instead of you being able to travel freely in the realm, you are forced to pay fees, become trackable, and identify yourself with a little ID card, you know? Just tools of control. And they've hijacked traveling like your basic human right here. And then you go to, you got to get a visa to go to another country it's the trickery in all of this is just unbelievable. How you're not free to travel anymore. It's just all the slave pens are so controlled at this point. A medical license. This is why people are sick in this age. This license restrains doctors from freely healing people using simple, unintrusive techniques. They must abide by the ever-changing rule set dictated by government scientists and are forced to use petrochemical concoctions produced by Big Pharma. The old safe and effective, right? But you consent to trusting doctors. There's a reason they're not called healers, right? They're called doctors because there's a liability issue. If you were to call them a healer and then they didn't heal you, you could take them to court. You could sue them. They never healed me. But if they doctored you, that's fine. Because doctoring is, you look up what doctoring is. It goes to documents and changing, fraud documents, fraudulently changing things is where the word doctoring comes from. So you got to realize these doctors are just screwing with your body, taking care of your symptoms, but then causing all sorts of havoc and side effects on the other end to keep you coming back. I got a lot to say about the medical system. I've been following this guy for probably 12 years now, Dr. Joel Wallach. He did the podcast Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And he named it that because back in 2011, the average lifespan of a doctor was 56. So in that time, 2011, Joel Wallach was in his 70s. He had been telling people since the 70s that they need fat in their diet. While basically he discovered a lot of malnutrition and poisoning. And he got blackballed by the whole medical industry for his discoveries. And telling people, way early on that you need fat in your diet. While they were trying to tell you fat's bad, put you on a statin drug, and basically evaporate all the fat in your brain so you can't think anymore. And that's part of all the low fat stuff they try to get people on, because your brain needs the fat, your reproductive system needs the fat, your all your nervous system, everything needs a sheath of fat around it to protect you and keep things flowing smoothly, And so, of course they would have this whole kick to get rid of fat in your diet to make you all sicker. But Joel Wallach, he picked up on it early. So something else I also learned from Joel Wallach was that doctors are the third leading cause of death, right behind heart disease and cancer. In his book, Epigenetics, all genetic diseases and chronic illnesses are actually caused by malnutrition and environmental poisoning. You know, so he kind of figured this out early on because Joel Wallach, he's actually the guy that studied all the zoo animals. There was this big epidemic of zoo animals dying, you know, and come to find out they're feeding them like moldy bread, and they're feeding the animals like, you know, they're just not giving them proper nutrition. So Joel Wallach basically wrote the book on exotic zoo animals and how to keep them nutritious. And, you know, he's like, wait, what if I apply what I just did in healing all these animals to humans? You know, maybe humans are just malnourished instead of all these crazy chronic illnesses that people claim. And, you know, he came out with a study on rhesus monkeys and how they didn't have a chronic illness. He was able to cure the chronic illness in the rhesus monkeys. And so then he was going to try and cure humans with that same chronic illness. And what do you know? They pull his license. They all fire him from all of his jobs. It's just a typical story of somebody who's on the path of truth. They're always persecuted in this age. You look at Julian Assange. What did they do to him? But if you are born with a defect, your mother was malnourished or poisoned during pregnancy, okay? It's not like you all are just born with these chronic illnesses, okay? It's a cop-out. There's a cause and effect to all health situations. It's no accident. So now moving on to the next spell they're casting, the business licenses. This is why we have mega corporations everywhere instead of small local business. Licensing is used to keep small players out of starting a new business. In a lot of cases, if your company is over 100 employees or larger, you get a government discount, or a lot of the rules just don't apply to you. If your company is large and massive, for some reason, you'd think like as a company gets bigger, maybe they should be looked at a little deeper with the magnifying glass. Nope, it's the opposite. It's the small businesses have the telescope on them all the time, making sure they don't do tiny little things off. All their stuff is tested and rigorously put through the system. The big corporations, they get a pass because they're just so big. How could we test all those things? They've proven that they're honorable companies, right? Like, you should really look into starting a small business, and then you understand why we're surrounded by mega corporations. So to start a business, there's 6 business licenses that they put out, and it all depends on where you live and what you're doing. So there's a federal license, a state license, a local license. There's professional licenses for plumbers, electricians, any tradesmen, sales tax license, home-based business license. Like, that should piss you off. You have a home-based business and they want to license you and give you permission to do something in your home to make a living. But this, you know, these are the spells that are cast and all the things that we're under. So I'm just trying to shed light. You've probably heard the stories of police shutting down a child's lemonade stand because they don't have a proper license. You know, in a world of morality, we would obviously stop a thug from trying to exploit a small child. Not in this age. Not in this age. The kids are handed off, you know, to all the people this age. There's no difference than how a mafia shakes down a small business. It's the same thing as a cop coming up and telling a child at a lemonade stand they need a license to operate. You know, where's the money? You got to pay us if you want to operate on this corner. It's all the same as like organized crime. If you can just get past that government is God and it's magically here to save everybody, not enslave everybody. Getting a little fired up. All these spells, contracts, or licenses are protected and enforced by court systems and judges who are just sorcerers in black robes that you give authority to. When you enter the court, think of a tennis court, a basketball court. You enter their game and must play by their rules. These games are set up to protect the dark magicians from the hexed. In other words, the game is rigged. So stop playing. Create your own game here. You expect to go to a court system and receive justice in this day and age? Like, you got to really have a screw loose. So then I want to talk about some spelling and wordplay. The word beautiful can actually mean be you to full. So it's like be yourself to the fullest is beautiful. History, a lot of people say, oh, in the history this happened. Well, what about her story? Nobody ever talks about her story because it's kind of like we've killed off the feminine aspect of everything in this age, and it's all brute force, command and control. There's no heart. There's no nourishment, in these systems. So you don't hear about her story. And then, what about my story? And how my story and mystery are kind of interlinked, So I wouldn't care about his story or her story. I'd be thinking about my story and my mystery that I'm unraveling. The good morning ritual. You probably hear people all day in the morning. Good morning. How are you doing? Good. Good morning. Good morning. Morning is a sad state. Like you're mourning the death of somebody. It's just crazy how everybody's always waking up in mourning. The hexed start their day in a sad morning state. It's like a permanent case of the Mondays. It's good to be mourning. I never say good morning. No. It's not good. Evil, spelled backwards, is just live. Devil, spelled backwards, is just lived. So these people have lived a little longer and they know how to trick you. They call them the devil. God is obviously dog backwards, which you act like a loyal dog serving your gods. Kind of obvious there. And then you just add O to God and it's good and everybody's good. Right? These are all just ritual words and spells cast to keep people bound to patterns, just repeating rituals over and over again. The hex system uses all forms of entertainment to influence you to act in a way that curses you. I call it entertainment enslavement. Slaves love their entertainment. As long as they can go home and watch some Star Wars at night. I don't care how bad you beat me in the day. So I'll get more into, the entertainment enslavement aspect in future videos. But I want to leave you with, I call her the spelling lady, Laurel Airica. She's just one of those wordsmiths. She's kind of figured out how the English language is used to cast spells, and she's just a great place to start, if you're curious about these things. So, thanks for joining me on the rock. I love you all. Enjoy.
So what do I mean by the secret spells of the English language? Well, let me share with you what I call our premier life sentence. And it goes something like this. We awake each morning and go off during the weekdays to earn the living at various jobs and undertakings until we come to the weekend. And this seems perfectly acceptable to most people. However, more people die between 6 and 9 on a Monday morning than any other time of the week. So I do what I call a translation of the English language, and I spell that Trance, with the idea that words cast spells. So when you translate that life sentence, you remember that awake is a funeral party for the dead. Mourning is the state you're in when you attend a wake. And you would have to be in a weekdays to earn the living, since urns are for the ashes of the dead. We call our jobs undertakings. Job itself is a Hebrew word for persecuted. And what we get at the end of this perverse bargain with life is the weak end of the deal as we become progressively weakened ourselves. And so our most prevalent greeting to each other is hello, the reverse of which is, oh, hell. And at first, I suspected the hands of collusion entangling the language to foster illusion. And I think it's quite true that a culture's theology has a great deal to do with the word's etymology and how it evolves over time to combine incompatible meanings that may undermine the original thoughts it was meant to define. But now, I don't think it's planned, for the thing that I've found is that like concepts can gravitate toward the same sound and vibrate at the rate that our thoughts designate. Because words are electromagnetic vibrations whose fine alphabetic tintinnabulations can take on the tint of our true expectations, which they then imprint on our metal of mind, causing sounds to adhere when they're of the same kind.